left, right, out. More on the Ukrainian situation. So that area, Donbass, which there's 2 republics that are being recognized, like Lugansk and Donetsk. I can't ever pronounce that stuff right. I know them. I've been over, not necessarily that far east in Ukraine, but I know of them. Over there dealing with people that were coming off those lines, Ukrainians. But Putin came out, and I listened to most of his speech, and it's pretty interesting because he talks about their common culture, which there was. This plays in like what I was saying. It's just easier for Putin here. He's being egged on just to take in these regions that already don't want to be part of Ukraine. They want to be part of Russia. Now, whether there was people that were forced to move it, there's a whole nother issue there. But there's a lot of Russian speakers, there's a lot of Russian culture there, and they themselves have separated from Ukraine. So that's what I've been saying all along, is that instead of invading, like, that's all BS. You just recognize these regions that already want to be a part of you, and it's a win-win for you, and the West has been egging you on to do it. So he did that. He kind of called out the West for financing the coup d'etat of Ukraine earlier, whatever, I think it was 2014 or something like that, or roughly around in there. Basically, the West funding different groups within Ukraine, which totally believable. And there's probably a paper trail somewhere there. There's a lot of interesting things that we've done over the years, especially with the Bidens, the Clintons, and various State Department people, various individuals. You look at Libya, you look at running guns into Syria, you look at a bunch of stuff, and you can see how that's plausible, and if not, just foregone conclusion that happened. So he said that he's going to send his military units to solidify those borders. So that's going to be semi-interesting. I don't see anything. Nobody's going to do anything. I'll just say that. These sanctions here, I saw Lindsey Graham, him and Mark Levin have never seen a war that they didn't like. They're always pushing, even though, Lindsey Graham was in some reserve unit or whatever and done shit. And Mark Levin definitely hadn't served. And they don't understand that there is such thing as blowback. They don't understand the second, third order effects of foreign policy. So they're constantly bloviating. Anyway, he wants us to crush the ruble and cut off their oil economy, which I don't understand, because Russia's been preparing for this kind of stuff for years. They have been bilateral agreements with other nations and other currencies. They've been stockpiling gold. They have been solidifying their country in ways that they can minimize any kind of impact without it not being on a dollar-denominated reserve. In fact, they started selling a lot of their dollar reserves years ago, if you remember that. So they're not, you can do what you can, but we're the ones that are, we're the ones without our pants on when it comes to currency. You try to, mess around with them. That one, they're a huge player in the oil markets now, or they have been, and they could be even more so. And you think that whatever, cutting this pipeline or whatever is going to hurt them, they just saw to China. The BRIC nations will gladly take their oil. And they might not even do it in dollars. So watch out for that. That would be just the ultimate slap in the face. Hey, we're just going to take one or whatever. There's solidified trading between those nations. So we don't have that clout like we did. Lindsey Graham thinks we do. Like, we pulled all of our, we can get into economics, we pulled all of our future purchasing power or whatever forward by printing a bunch of money and inflating the currency, which that is inflation. Hollowing out our society, hollowing out our entities, and then you've taken the degrading of standards within our own institutions that were once looked upon as kind of like a star world, or whatever that word is. They're looked upon as, bastions of hope or of honor or whatnot. I mean, there's always a great disdain with government, but I used to look at, we can trust those individuals in a certain regard, but we don't anymore. I mean, everything's corrupt top to bottom. You look at the FBI and these other organizations, they're pretty much like Stasi units. They're used for political gain. So I don't see a valid response, or any way to respond to the Russian thing. And the only thing you could really hurt them on is militarily. Economically, we're not going to be able to do anything to them. We are, people are, if they think that we have the economic clout anymore to do anything, are gravely mistaken. You listen, I was re-listening to a guy that I used to listen to when I was a long time ago. Ultimate respect for this guy. He unbrainwashed me, Michael Savage. He had a gal on talking about how, you know, well over 90% of our medicine comes from China. We're importing oil and various petroleum products from Russia. Most of our semiconductors and chips or whatever of that nature come from like Taiwan. And a lot of those other components, like when I was in still there, and the only thing I ever agreed really with John McCain on was the fact that, you know, companies like Tyranny or whatever that, and companies like that were producing circuits for jets for our military were made in China. And there was even talk of possible sleeper whatever type software on some of these. In fact, we flash these boards just in case and then reload software on some of them with that kind of in mind, that these things are made in China. Our whole system is dictated by communists and then people in the Far East. So we don't make anything, we don't produce anything besides paper dollars and some very small amount of anything. So we don't have that clout, because ultimately wealth or economic clout comes down to being able to create goods and services. Now, if you think that a service of creating transgender kids is something that's exportable, then maybe you got something there. But for the most part, we have nothing besides ill repute to export anymore. We did have oil and gas. We did have that under the Trump administration. So I disagree a lot with Trump when it comes to the Federal Reserve, which is the biggest underlying fault that we have in the world, or in this nation, in the world, ultimately, central banking, fiat currency. But I never had a doubt that that guy wasn't on our side. And I wish we had Cheeto Man back, because at least some of this shit would not be going down under him. And the fact that if you don't believe that there's some grand conspiracy now, or some kind of at least collaborative conspiracy, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't want to believe it either. And I used to think like guys like Jones were crazy, but more and more he keeps getting proven right. But you look at how the coverage of the Russiagate thing went down. Totally unfounded. 2 years of just political witch hunting still going on. People getting in prison. January 6th, people in prison still. Not having, really a flash in the pan compared to these other riots. Now you look at what's going on in Canada. Pretty much one of the greatest travesties in Western civilization in my lifetime. What has gone on in Canada, right? What is going on in Canada right now? You can see the weapons of propaganda by their media, the disparagement through various mechanisms in their government, and the ultimate, we'll see who's next. Like I said, the crusade never ends with that killing of the enemy, who the initial crusade was initially announced. So we'll see. This whole world is falling apart and quick. Now, on the market side, let's talk a little bit about markets. I would imagine you're going to have a little bit of a sell-off, or a pretty good flush down, probably over this Ukraine thing, but that's not the ultimate. The other thing this does provide is cover for the Federal Reserve to not go the half point that was recognized. Most people are saying half point, maybe even 3/4 to a full point rate hike. Or really Bullard was calling for that full point rate hike, which we need a vastly greater amount than that, but to get any kind of market-based interest rate. But this is going to provide them cover to keep it at a 1/4 point, man. And they're going to justify for the political instability, these ramifications of things that are going on in the market. And that ultimately is an easy policy still, and that should provide a little bit of a, a bottom, like almost like a put for the market itself, that knowing that the Fed is willing to just move in and to even, you know, I don't, what it is, it's setting up for their ultimate rate cuts, you know, or back to QE. I don't even, like I said, I don't think they'll get past a point and a half without crashing everything, or crashing the stock market in general. I mean, the malinvestment in the real market's so great that we don't even know what, we don't know what kind of depression we're gonna go into, because a lot of these businesses, like, let's take a DoorDash, let's go, last thing. I know I'm going off on all kinds of tangents, but look at what DoorDash reported. This is one of those companies that should not exist in its current form, right? These companies don't make any money. They operate at a loss, a significant loss, but yet raise money in the market and expand. So you think about all the companies that legitimately make money, they could utilize that capital, but too many people are chasing yield, or chasing things that are just going up, and there's so much liquidity or so much money out there that they're putting into these riskier assets, and they're investing in companies that don't make money. In fact, they're losing quite a significant amount of money, and it's all based off, you know, expansionary monetary policy. But there's a number of companies like that. There's a number of companies in the market that are they're just money losing operations that are only operating through investment, through capital raising, through whatever, selling stock or getting these investors. And maybe one day some of them will make money, like in Amazon. That was one of those things that they operated at a loss for a number of years, and then eventually started making money. But there's a number of zombie companies, what we call them. When interest rates go up, there's no way that they can actually exist if they keep trying to roll over the debt. And then when the market crashes, how are they going to access capital markets? I don't know. It's all craziness. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Peace.